My name is Destiny, a 34-year-old single mom and nurse at a kids' clinic in Phoenix, Arizona. I have two amazing children, Morgan, who's 8, and Cameron, who's 6. For years, I've been the black sheep in my family, always compared to my older sister, the golden child who had it all figured out. But what happened at that family dinner 2 years ago changed everything. It started with the usual tension, but I finally snapped in a way they never saw coming. At family dinner, I said, "I'm going to die." The room froze for a split second. Then they burst out laughing. My sister sneered, "What an actor you are, always so dramatic." My parents chuckled along, shaking their heads like it was just another one of my overreactions. Morgan's eyes widened in confusion, and Cameron clutched his toy truck tighter, not understanding why everyone was mocking Mommy's words. I didn't yell back. I didn't cry or beg them to listen. Those words weren't a joke, they came from the fear gripping my chest after my stage 2 breast cancer diagnosis 6 months earlier. The chemo was kicking in, but the what-ifs kept me up at night. I was thinking about my kids' future, the college fund my dad had hinted at months before, and how I needed to protect them if things went south. But they treated it like a punchline. My sister leaned in, still smirking, and pivoted right to demanding more for her twins. Like my pain was just background noise. The argument escalated fast, harsh words flying, accusations about who deserved what. Before I knew it, she lunged at Morgan, shoving her roughly aside while calling her a disappointment. My parents just stood there, telling me to leave. I scooped up my kids, their little faces pale and scared, and walked out without another word. As I buckled them into the car, I made one call that would unravel everything they'd built. Little did they know, 2 years later, they'd be begging at my door. If your family ever laughed at your deepest fears, hit that like button and subscribe for the full story. Tell me what city you live in. I want to know how far my story will go. To understand how that dinner turned into a nightmare, let's rewind to where it all began. 20 years ago, my family packed up our lives in the flat farmlands of Iowa and headed west to Phoenix, chasing Dad's dream of a warmer climate and better opportunities. Jeffrey and Pamela, my parents, sold our old farmhouse and bought a sprawling ranch-style home in a sun-baked suburb, complete with a backyard big enough for barbecues that stretched into the night. They were the epitome of Midwestern grit, Dad with his engineering job at a local plant, Mom volunteering at church bake sales. But from the moment we arrived, the favoritism started creeping in like the desert heat. My sister Sierra, 3 years older than me, adapted like she'd been born for it. She aced high school in Phoenix, landed a scholarship to Arizona State, and by 25 was climbing the ranks at a big bank downtown. Married to Dylan, a solid guy in sales. Their twins, Caitlin and Trevor, arrived right after graduation, perfect little symbols of the American dream we'd all migrated for. Sierra's life was the one Mom and Dad bragged about at every family Zoom call, back to Iowa relatives. "Look at Sierra, making us proud in this new land," Dad would say, his voice full of that old country pride. Me, I struggled from day one. College was a grind, juggling classes with waitressing shifts to cover tuition. Then came Sean, my boyfriend from community college, who bolted the second I told him I was pregnant with Cameron. I had Morgan a couple years earlier, but Sean's disappearance hit harder, left me scraping by in a tiny apartment on the east side, working double shifts as a nurse at a pediatric clinic. Mom and Dad never let me forget it. "Why can't you be more like Sierra?" became their go-to line during holidays, whispered over plates of green chili enchiladas. They wired money to Sierra for the twins' private tutors, but for me, it was always tough love lectures about personal responsibility. The migration was supposed to be our fresh start, but it just highlighted the divide, Sierra as the success story, me as the cautionary tale. Fast forward 8 months before that fateful dinner. Dad called me on video one evening while I was folding laundry after a long chemo session. My stage 2 breast cancer diagnosis had come just 2 months prior, and the treatments were already wearing me down. His face filled the screen, lined but excited. "Destiny, I've been thinking about the grandkids' futures," he said, leaning back in his recliner. "With the economy being what it is here in Phoenix, I want to set up college funds for all of them, $50,000 each. Through those 529 plans. It'll be official soon, but I wanted you to know first." My heart swelled despite the nausea from the drugs. It felt like a lifeline, something solid for Morgan and Cameron if my treatments didn't go as planned. "That's incredible, Dad," I managed, forcing a smile. They deserve that shot. He nodded, mentioning how he'd loop in Sierra too, but the call ended with his usual nudge, just keep pushing like your sister does. That night, I couldn't sleep. The fear gnawed at me. What if I didn't beat this? What if my kids ended up with nothing because of family biases? So, I drove to a notary the next day and updated my will, the one I'd started years ago after Sean left. It was simple: everything to my children, with a broad clause to protect them from any family member who harmed a grandchild, physical or emotional. No specifics on the funds yet, since Dad's plan was still informal, but it covered any inheritance or assets, ensuring no one could touch their share if they crossed that line. I didn't tell anyone. It felt too raw, too final. Now, back to that summer evening 2 years ago. The air in Phoenix hung heavy, the kind of dry heat that makes your skin prickle even at dusk. We'd gathered in the backyard for Dad's famous grill-out, burgers sizzling, kids chasing fireflies that weren't there in the desert dusk. Morgan and Cameron played quietly with plastic shovels in the dirt, while Caitlin and Trevor raced around the pool, demanding attention. Mom had set up the long picnic table under the string lights, plates piled high with potato salad and corn on the cob. Dad cleared his throat as we sat down, his fork pausing mid-air. "I've got good news," he announced, glancing around with that proud glint in his eye. "Pamela and I have finalized the college funds for all the grandkids. $50,000 apiece, locked into those state plans. It's our way of giving back after all these years out here." The words hit me like a cool breeze in the scorch. Tears pricked my eyes, unbidden. With my scans looming and the chemo fog still clouding my days, this meant everything: a safety net for my babies under that relentless Arizona sun. Morgan looked up, her little face lighting up as if she understood. Cameron clapped, oblivious but joyful. For once, it felt like equality in this family we'd uprooted for. Sierra's smile didn't reach her eyes. She set down her glass of iced tea, the condensation dripping slowly. "That's generous, Dad," she said, her voice smooth as ever, but I saw the calculation flicker, the banker in her, always tallying assets. Caitlin and Trevor could really use a boost, though they're already in advanced classes, talking Ivy League dreams. Remember how we came here for those big opportunities? They deserve extra to make it happen. Sierra's suggestion landed like a spark on dry tinder. She leaned forward, her manicured nails tapping the edge of the picnic table, eyes locking on Dad with that polished confidence she'd honed at the bank. "I mean, it's great for all the kids. But let's be honest, Caitlin and Trevor are ahead of the curve. They're taking AP classes already, talking about Stanford or Yale. That takes resources, Dad, extra tutors, test prep, maybe even a gap year abroad to build their resumes. The funds should reflect that potential, especially since we uprooted everything for these chances." I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, not just from the Phoenix sun beating down on us. Her words twisted the knife of everything I'd fought for since Sean's abandonment, the late nights charting patient vitals while Morgan begged for bedtime stories. The way Cameron's questions about "where's Daddy" still stung during chemo breaks. "Sierra," I said quietly at first, setting down my fork. "The funds are equal for a reason. Morgan and Cameron need them just as much. They're smart, curious, they'll make something of it without all the bells and whistles." She rolled her eyes, a quick flick that dismissed me like one of her loan applications. "Come on, Destiny, you're sweet for believing that. But let's face facts. Your kids are sweet, sure, but they're not exactly on the honor roll track, and with your situation, who knows what kind of stability they have. Not worth investing the full amount when it's better spent on those who can actually turn it into something big. Like my twins, they're the future we moved here for." The insult sliced deep, her voice dripping with that fake concern, like my cancer was just another excuse for my failures. The backyard suddenly felt smaller, the string lights above blurring in the haze of rising dust from the kids' forgotten games. Mom shifted in her seat, her sundress sticking to the bench, but she didn't jump in to defend me. Instead, she sighed, fanning herself with a napkin. "Destiny, honey, Sierra has a point. Be practical like your sister, don't be so dramatic about it. We all want what's best, but resources are limited." Dramatic. The word echoed the hundreds of times they'd thrown it at me since the diagnosis, as if my port scars and nausea were theater props. I glanced at Morgan, who had stopped poking at her corn, her small brow furrowed as she sensed the shift. Cameron tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "Mommy, is it hot?" The same air pressed in, thick and unforgiving, mirroring the weight on my chest. "Practical," I repeated, my voice gaining edge. "Mom, this isn't about drama. I could die any time from this stage 2 mess. The doctors say the chemo's working. But what if it's not? My kids need that future more than ever. They're not worth it. They're my everything. The reason I drag myself to work every day after treatments." Dad cleared his throat again, but this time it was firmer, his engineer's logic kicking in. "Now, girls, let's keep it civil. But Sierra's right. We have to think long-term. Caitlin and Trevor show real promise. The kind that pays off. Destiny. You've had your share of bumps, but reallocating a bit wouldn't hurt. It's about maximizing the investment for the family legacy we built coming out here." Legacy. The word burned. A reminder of how they'd framed the move from Iowa as Dad's grand plan, with Sierra as the shining example and me as the side note. My hands trembled on the tablecloth, the plastic forks rattling slightly. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the yard, but the heat clung like a bad memory. Maximizing, I shot back, standing up so fast the bench scraped against the patio stones. "You mean picking favorites? Just like always, Morgan reads chapter books already. Cameron solves puzzles that stump his teacher. They're not bumps. Dad, they're kids deserving the same shot, not scraps because I'm fighting for my life." Sierra crossed her arms, her smirk fading into something sharper. "See, always turning it into a sob story. If you were more like me, you'd understand, plan ahead, not react. Your situation is tough, but it's not an excuse to drag everyone down." Mom reached out a hand, but it hovered without touching. "Destiny, sit down. You're making a scene under this heat. Sierra's just being realistic." Realistic, the term they'd used since the migration, to justify wiring Sierra's down payment while I scraped for rent. My throat tightened, the dry air making it hard to swallow. "Realistic is letting your daughter mock my kid's worth while I'm poisoning my body to survive," I said, voice cracking despite my effort to steady it. The desert wind picked up, scattering napkins, but no one moved to chase them. Dad's face hardened, the lines from years in the sun deepening. "Enough. Destiny. Sierra's kids have the edge. We're supporting where it counts." That was it, the snap. My chair tipped back as I rose fully, pulse thundering in my ears louder than the distant hum of cicadas. "Support. You've supported her my whole life, Dad. But my kids. They're worth every penny, every fight. If that's not clear, maybe this family's legacy is broken." The tension boiled over in seconds. Sierra's chair scraped as she shot to her feet, her face flushing red against the golden sunset. "Broken legacy that's rich coming from you," she spat, pointing a finger across the table. "You've always resented my success. Destiny. Now you're guilting everyone because of your illness. My twins deserve the full funds. They're the ones carrying the family name forward." I opened my mouth to retort, but she was already moving, rounding the table with quick steps, her sandals slapping the stone. The air crackled with her anger, the heat amplifying every breath. Morgan, sensing the storm, slid closer to me on the bench, her hand finding mine under the tablecloth. Cameron froze with his truck, eyes wide, before I could pull her back. Sierra reached for Morgan, not grabbing, but shoving her shoulder roughly to make space, as if my daughter was just an obstacle. Morgan stumbled sideways, her cup tipping over, iced tea spilling across the wood in a dark puddle. "Get out of the way, you little disappointment," Sierra hissed, the word landing like a stone in the quiet yard. "This isn't your fight, go play or something." Disappointment, the label she'd hurled indirectly all evening, now direct and venomous, aimed at an 8-year-old who did nothing but exist. Morgan let out a sharp cry, more surprise than pain, rubbing her arm as she righted herself. The camera Dad had installed in the corner of the patio after that neighborhood break-in 2 months back. A wide-angle unit covering the whole backyard from the eaves whirred softly, its red light blinking steady. It caught everything, the shove, the spill. Sierra's twisted expression. I lunged forward, heart slamming against my ribs. "Don't touch her," my voice broke the spell, raw and fierce. Cameron wailed now, dropping his toy to cling to my leg. Sierra stepped back, but her eyes blazed. "She's fine, stop babying her. Like mother, like daughter, all drama, no substance." Mom rose slowly, her napkin forgotten. but she placed a hand on Sierra's arm not to pull her away, but to steady her. Destiny, that's enough. You've escalated this. Sierra didn't mean it like that. Dad stayed seated, his face a mask of disapproval, arms still crossed. Go back to your apartment. Destiny, don't ruin the dinner any more than you already have. We're trying to celebrate here. Their words landed heavier than the shove. Celebrate, while Sierra lashed out at my child, and they sided with her. The string lights flickered on as dusk deepened, casting harsh shadows that made Mom's face look older. Dad's jaw tighter, the spilled tea soaked into the tablecloth, a dark stain spreading like the resentment I'd swallowed for years. Morgan's sniffles cut through, her small body trembling against mine. Mommy, why did Aunt Sierra push me? I knelt, wrapping her in my arms, Cameron burrowing in too. Tears stung my eyes, hot and unbidden, but I blinked them back for them. It's okay, sweetie, we're going home. The SAA Mac night was closing in, the temperature dropping just enough to raise goosebumps, but the chill inside was worse. Sierra watched, arms folded, Dylan silent beside her as always. Mom hovered, murmuring, "Think about what you're doing, honey." But it was half-hearted, her loyalty divided. Dad pushed his plate away, the scrape echoing. You heard me leave. This family's had enough of your outbursts tonight. Outbursts. As if my defense was the problem, not Sierra's hands on my daughter. The camera's light blinked on, oblivious. Recording the fracture. I stood, gathering the kids' things with shaking hands, Morgan's spilled cup, Cameron's truck stuffing them into my bag. Come on, babies, I whispered, leading them toward the gate. Morgan limped a step, more shock than injury, but it tore at me. Cameron's cries muffled against my side. We made it to the car parked on the curb, the engine rumbling to life under the street lamp's glow as I pulled away from the curb, the house shrinking in the rearview lights twinkling like nothing had happened. Sobs broke free from all three of us. The freeway loomed ahead, Phoenix's sprawl blurring through tears. It's us against the world now, I told them softly, wiping Morgan's cheek, but in my pocket. My phone burned. I hit speed dial while merging onto the road, the signal strong despite the hills. Kevin, it's Destiny from college in Tempe. I need your help. Bad. Kevin's voice cut through the static. Destiny, wow. It's been years. You sound shaken. What's wrong? I gripped the phone tighter, the dashboard lights blurring as I navigated the early morning traffic on I-10. I need to see you. Today. It's bad. Kevin? Family stuff really bad. He didn't hesitate, his tone shifting to that steady lawyer calm I remembered from our Tempe college days. Come to the office in an hour. We'll sort it. The Phoenix skyline loomed as I pulled into the parking lot of his downtown firm, a sleek glass building that screamed success. Kevin met me at the door, taller than I recalled, his suit sharp but his smile warm. Destiny Carter, he said, pulling me into a quick hug. Still fighting the good fight. We hadn't spoken much since graduation, me diving into nursing, him into estate law, but he'd always checked in, especially after hearing about my divorce from Sean. I followed him to his office, the kids in tow. Morgan clutched her stuffed bear, quiet after a restless night, while Cameron dozed in his stroller, too young to grasp the chaos. Kevin's space was all polished wood and legal tomes, a far cry from my clinic's fluorescent buzz. Sit, he said, closing the door. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. So I did, the words tumbling out like the tears I'd held back last night. It started with my cancer, stage 2 breast cancer, diagnosed 6 months ago. Chemo's kicking my butt, but the doctors say it's treatable. Last night at my parents' backyard dinner, Dad announced the college funds $50,000 each for the grandkids. I was relieved, thinking of Morgan and Cameron's future if things go wrong for me. But Sierra, my sister, she twisted it, demanded more for her twins, called my kids not worth investing in. It escalated, words flying about my situation, how I'm unstable because of the illness. Kevin nodded, jotting notes, his pen steady. And then, the shove, I said, voice dropping. She pushed Morgan rough, on the shoulder, made her spill her drink, called her a disappointment right to her face. The whole thing's on video, the backyard camera Dad installed after a break-in 2 months back. Wide angle, catches audio too. My parents just watched. Mom steadied Sierra. Dad told me to go back to your apartment and not ruin the dinner. I grabbed the kids and left. crying the whole drive home. He leaned back, rubbing his chin. Jesus. Destiny. That's assault on a minor simple, but with the video, it's ironclad. And the emotional toll on you and the kids grounds for distress in Arizona courts. But let's back up those funds. Your dad mentioned them before. I nodded, the memory surfacing sharp. 8 months ago, right after his video call about setting up the 529 plans. He was excited, said it'd be equal for all the grandkids. I was already updating my will then, nothing fancy, just ensuring everything goes to Morgan and Cameron if the chemo doesn't work. I added a general clause: any family member who harms a grandchild, physically or emotionally, forfeits their own kid's share of my estate or any linked assets. It's broad, covers inheritance, trusts anything I control. Kevin's eyebrows rose. Smart. When did you add that? During a family meeting a few weeks after Dad's call. Sierra was there on Zoom from her office. She pushed for protections, said we needed safeguards against unstable influences around the twins, kept eyeing me, implying I'd be the risk. Make it apply to anyone who could hurt the children, she insisted. Mom and Dad agreed, but generalized it to all adults. I signed off, thinking it was fair. Irony is, she handed me the rope. He flipped open a file drawer, pulling a template. That's gold. In Arizona, wills with conditional clauses like that are enforceable if clear and not against public policy. Harm to a minor disqualifies her twins from your bequest, and if the funds tie in through your estate planning, it ripples. We can link it to emotional distress too. Relief mixed with the exhaustion, my body aching from the night's tension. So we sue for the shove. The words, everything. Absolutely, Kevin said, his eyes firm. Assault and battery on a child plus intentional infliction of emotional distress. With the video, CPS will get involved fast here in Maricopa County. Restraining order, maybe supervised visits for Sierra. I'll file civil for damages. Therapy costs. You okay with that? I glanced at the kids, Morgan coloring quietly, Cameron stirring awake. For them, yes. That afternoon, I called the clinic for appointments. Our insurance covered pediatric therapy, so we started sessions the next week. Cameron was too little, barely 3. His world still trucks and naps. He didn't ask questions, just hugged tighter. But Morgan, she sat on the counselor's colorful rug, twisting her bear's ear. Why did Aunt Sierra push me? Mommy, she whispered during our first intake, her voice small in the air-conditioned room. Did I do something wrong? The question gutted me, the fluorescent lights harsh overhead. No. Baby. Aunt Sierra was angry at Mommy, not you. You're perfect. The therapist nodded, jotting notes on family dynamics, promising tools for Morgan to process the hurt. Cameron babbled in the corner, oblivious, but I held them both closer. The clinic's familiar scent of antiseptic, a small comfort amid the storm. Kevin prepped the papers that evening, emailing drafts. We're going to war. Destiny, but smart, your will's the ace. The filings went in the following week. A few weeks after, the station house in Phoenix felt like a different world, cool AC blasting against the summer swelter. Officers in starched uniforms flipping through my phone's footage. This is clear cut, the detective said, replaying the clip on his monitor. The backyard camera's HD lens had captured it all, Sierra's hand connecting with Morgan's shoulder. The stumble, the spill. Her voice sharp with disappointment. No ambiguity, the shove was rough, the intent ugly. We'll forward to CPS right away. Arizona takes child contact seriously. Expect a home visit soon. CPS moved fast in Maricopa County, their investigator arriving at my apartment 2 days later. Notebook in hand. She was kind-eyed, but professional. Setting up in the living room while the kids played in their room. Morgan's therapy had ramped up by then. Twice a week at the clinic where I worked, covered by my insurance plan. The sessions were in a sunlit room, but the Phoenix glare outside seemed to mock the safe space inside, harsh rays slanting through blinds, highlighting the crayons scattered on the floor. During one interview, the therapist knelt to Morgan's level, her voice soft. Tell me about that day with Aunt Sierra, sweetie. Morgan fiddled with a puzzle piece, the light catching her hair. She pushed me 'cause Mommy was talking loud. It hurt my arm, but more my feelings. Why was she mad at us? The question hung, the room's warmth doing nothing to ease the knot in my gut. The therapist nodded, turning to me. Trauma like this can linger. Physical contact from family hits different. We'll work on coping tools, like drawing the scary feelings out. Cameron, in his parallel playgroup, stacked blocks without a care, his innocence a small mercy. That same week, my phone rang with an Iowa area code. Dana, Mom's older sister from back in the Midwest, the one who'd hosted us during the migration planning. Destiny, it's Aunt Dana. Your mom's beside herself. What on earth happened at the dinner? Sierra called. Said you overreacted because of your illness. Blew the whole thing out of proportion. She's devastated. You know. The twins are asking why they can't see their cousins. Devastated. The word twisted. Dana's voice warm but edged with that family mediator tone she'd perfected over decades of holiday feuds. I paced the kitchen, the linoleum cool under my feet. Aunt Dana, it wasn't an overreaction. Sierra shoved Morgan. It's on video. CPS is involved now. My cancer doesn't make me hysterical. It makes me protective. She paused, the line crackling faintly. I get you're going through hell with the treatments, sweetie, but family sticks together. Sierra's under stress to work. The kids. She said you started it, yelling about dying and guilting everyone. Maybe dial it back. Your parents are heartbroken. Jeffrey can't sleep. Let's not tear this apart over one bad night. Guilting. The narrative Sierra spun, turning my fear into manipulation, my defense into aggression. Dana meant well, her Midwest roots showing in the plea for unity, but it stung like salt in a wound. It's not one night, Aunt Dana. It's years of them favoring her, and now this harming my child. Tell them we're done pretending. Calls like that came in waves over the next days, relatives from Iowa chiming in, echoing Sierra's line. Overreacted because of the sickness. One cousin texted, let it go for the family's sake. Gaslighting, pure and simple, making me question if the shove was as bad as it felt, if my pain was just drama, amplified by chemo fog. But the video didn't lie, and neither did Morgan's quiet nights, waking from dreams of mean aunt. Then came the serve Kevin's process server, a no-nonsense guy in khakis, pulling up to my parents' ranch as the afternoon heat peaked. I tagged along, heart pounding, parking across the street to watch from the shade of a Palo Verde tree. The doorbell chimed, and Sierra answered first, her face paling at the envelope. What is this? Mom appeared behind, Jeffrey shuffling in from the garage. The server was crisp. Civil suit for assault and emotional distress on behalf of Destiny Carter and her minor children, also notifying enforcement of will provisions. He handed copies, then left without fanfare. Inside, voices rose. Sierra's shrill. Mom's placating. Kevin had prepped me. Show them the video first, then the clause. I waited until they gathered in the living room, the AC humming against the outdoor blaze. Play it, I said when they called me in. Phone in hand. The screen lit up with the HD feed, the shove in crystal clarity. Audio crisp. Little disappointment. Gas filled the room. Mom's hand to her mouth. And this, I continued, sliding over the notarized will excerpt. The general clause I added 8 months ago, after Dad's fun talk. Any adult harming a grandchild forfeits their own kid's inheritance share, including the $529 if linked to my estate planning. Sierra pushed for it. Remember, against unstable family. It applies now. Sierra's knees buckled, sinking onto the couch, her blouse sticking in the stuffy air. This can't. Caitlin and Trevor, they lose everything because of one push. Her voice cracked, the banker facade crumbling under the relentless Phoenix heat seeping through the windows. Dad stared at the paper, color draining. Destiny, we can fix this. Family first. Family, I echoed, steady despite the ache. You chose sides last night. The months dragged on with court dates. 3 months later, the gavel fell in the Maricopa County courtroom, the air conditioner humming against the late fall warmth still clinging to Phoenix. Sierra stood before the judge, her usual poise cracked, dressed in a simple blouse instead of her power suits. The plea bargain Kevin negotiated was swift misdemeanor assault on a minor, 100 hours of community service at a local shelter, and a 2-year restraining order barring her from contact with Morgan and Cameron. Violation means jail time, the judge warned, her voice echoing off the wood panels. Sierra nodded, eyes downcast, But the real blow came from the background check. Her bank fired her on the spot, citing character concerns in the report. No more corner office, no more client lunches, just a severance package and a resume gap that screamed scandal. Dylan filed for divorce the next week. The paper served at her new rental on the west side. "I can't raise the twins in this toxicity," he told the mediator, his voice flat over Zoom. CPS swooped in for evaluations, their home visits turning into full custody battles. Sierra lost primary placement, supervised weekends only. The twins shuttled to a neutral site while counselors assessed the fallout. Caitlin, sharp as ever, started acting out at school, her teacher noting family stress impacts. Trevor withdrew, trading soccer for solitary video games. The clause in my will held firm. The probate court enforced it, stripping their share of the linked 529 funds, 50,000 each. Redirected to a general family pot I controlled. "It's the law," Kevin explained over coffee, his files stacked high. "She built the trap herself." Mom and Dad settled out of court faster, their check for $50,000 arriving via certified mail earmarked for therapy and educational extras. "We're sorry," the note read, in Mom's looping script. But no call followed. Their reputation in the Phoenix suburbs crumbled quietly. Dad booted from the neighborhood HOA board after whispers spread. Mom asked to step down from the PTA at the twins' school. "We can't have this kind of publicity," the president emailed, polite but firm. The church group where she'd led bake sales dried up, invitations halting after the story leaked through Iowa cousins. They retreated to the ranch, blinds drawn against the relentless sun. Their migration dream soured into isolation. 2 years passed in a blur of scans and small victories. My stage 2 went into full remission after the final chemo round. The oncologists, all clear, echoing like a long-held breath released. The side effects faded, the nausea, the fatigue leaving me stronger, sharper. At the clinic, my boss pulled me aside one humid morning. "Destiny, your handling of that family crisis, plus your patient loads. We're making you head nurse. Raise starts next paycheck." The promotion meant better shifts. A modest bump in pay, enough to trade the cramped apartment for a 2-bedroom in a shaded complex near a South Mountain. Morgan thrived in her after-school art club, her drawings less shadowed now, while Cameron joined a soccer league, his laughs filling the evenings. The funds grew untouched, a promise of college without strings. Then, one scorching afternoon, the doorbell buzzed insistent, like a fly trapped in the screen. I peered through the peephole. Mom, Dad. Sierra huddled on the stoop, faces flushed from the walk. Jeffrey leaned on his cane, his color gray under the AZ glare that had worsened his heart condition over the years. The heat, the stress, doctors said, conspired against his arteries. Sierra held a bakery box. "Mom, a card." "Destiny, please." Mom called through the door, voice muffled. "We drove from the house. Forgive us, we miss the kids." I opened it a crack, chain latched. The desert breeze carrying their sweat. "Forgive after everything," Dad wheezed, clutching his chest. "The heart attack last month. Doctors say it's serious. The son here's killing me. We need you, family heals." Sierra shifted, eyes red-rimmed. "The divorce wrecked me, the job gone. Caitlin and Trevor, they lost so much. Please, let us make it right." I studied them, the weight of 2 years settling. Remission had taught me boundaries. Therapy had rebuilt my core. "So someone is about to die," I said, the words flat, echoing the dinner's cruelty back at them. Mom's eyes welled. "Destiny, don't..." Too late. I cut in, unhooking the chain just enough to hand over the box and card. "Send your gifts back unopened from now on. Blocked numbers. No visits. We're done." The door clicked shut, their protests fading behind it. I leaned against the wood, breath steady, the AC cool on my skin. Looking back, that migration from Iowa wasn't just a move, it was the seed of favoritism, barren like the Phoenix desert, burning away bonds with its dry indifference. Sierra's shove, their silence, the gaslighting calls, it all stemmed from blind preference, prioritizing her success over my survival. But true family, it's the shield through illness, the fierce guard for your children's light, not blood ties twisted by old world biases. Morgan and Cameron learned that early, no competing for scraps, just unwavering love. We built our circle small but unbreakable, under that same unforgiving sun.